Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hi, listener. It's Lara Jane again, and I am here with a new friend, and her name is Iva. And Iva is here to talk to us about broken patterns and how we get rid of them. And all of the information about her bio, how to contact her is in the show notes. But so that we can optimize your time, we're just going to get right into the meat. So Iva, let's talk about broken patterns.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Laura Jane. I really appreciate it. It's such an honor to be on your show. So I have a certification as a neuro coach. And so through that certification process and all that I learned about how the brain works, I realized that our brain is really, it likes patterns. And so how we form our beliefs is, ever since we were children, ever since we're young, our outside influences, our environments that we're in are where we create our beliefs from. Whether it's things that people say to us or about us, or even just what we observe in our surroundings. And especially when we're young, before prefrontal cortex is completely developed, we pick up these beliefs that we may not even want to have, or beliefs that are really not serving us. And so what we get to do now, what I get to help my clients do, is to help them identify those broken belief patterns that are holding them back from really all that God has created them to be while they're on this earth. And to address those, remove them, which is a really important process that often gets missed, but is that the actual removal of those old broken belief patterns, and then beginning to rewire our brains with the truth. And it's really powerful, incredible work. And I, myself, as I've done this process myself, have just experienced incredible transformation in my life as well. And so I just love to talk about it and share what I know with other people. So, yeah.
How long have you been doing, not the coaching or part, but changing your beliefs and fixing your broken patterns? Because I know I've been working on my self-talk and all those things that, you're kind of trained as this little tiny child that you have to smile and then people like you. If you don't, they don't, and these little tiny things that seem so important that end up, as you start fixing those, aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah. I would say I've been working on them for probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years. And I've been aware of how important our beliefs are, and to address, those thoughts. And, scripture talks about renewing our mind and the importance of that. And so, I've been aware of that. What I've discovered as I've, learned more about how the brain works through the neuro coaching, I feel like it's taken it to a deeper level of actually, working with how the brain specifically works. And then, the removal of the old belief patterns is such an important step, like I said, that often gets missed. And now that I'm doing that kind of work, it's like a more lasting, deep transformation than just trying to, okay, I need to think these thoughts, I need to believe these beliefs, but it's actually getting to the root and removing those old things that need to be uprooted and removed. And then we can begin to prime in the new beliefs.
Awesome. So as a coach, how do you help start identifying those? Like if you and I were in our first coaching session, how would you go, oh, that's what's broken? Or do you say, oh, what do you feel is broken?
Yeah. So I'm trained on how to ask questions with my clients, and it's really easy for me to help identify. I mean, I can pick it up pretty quickly in the language that my client is using. So all of our beliefs are attached to three core needs. We as humans all have three core needs, and that is to be loved, to be valued, and to feel safe. And so usually as I'm listening to my client begin to talk about what situation they're facing in their life, by the language that they use, I can pretty quickly pick up, what their beliefs are that are holding them back. And then they're always tied to one of those core needs. So, yeah. That's how I uncover
Do you
that.
find one of those needs is predominant? For some reason, I would think depending on, God, this is probably not the right way to say this, but your status in life, how comfortable you are. Like, I would bet that I don't have a lot of safety needs. I live in a safe city. My finances are fine, so I'm going to assume that I would be more in the love category of, just that piece. Do you find that there's one that your clients seem to tend to be in a category more than others, or the other two?
I would probably say the value one, especially with women. I think so many times we view ourselves or compare ourselves to others and that kind of thing. And so that's the one that seems to be pretty common amongst women, especially. But it's a variety across the board, and many times it's connected to more than just one core need. Sometimes they're very intertwined as well. So yeah.
How does value and love differ in the need? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like love is one of those things, that we as humans, it's one of those core essential things. Like, in order to thrive, we need to feel loved, right? As children, and really that trauma comes out of that, not having that love that we need as a young child. And the safety part, or the value, you're saying the value in between value and being loved. I don't know. I would say just, they are very interconnected, really. I mean, it's almost hard to separate them,
Yeah, because I was thinking about it. It's like, I like to be valued. Like, why would I have a podcast if I didn't think there was some value in it?
Right.
But deep down inside, I think, it's that old pack mentality of, if you're not liked and part of the pack, you're kicked out and you die, and it's just kind of that thing that we're so ingrained with that I wasn't sure how to separate the two.
Yeah.
Because I think I could be loved and still not valued. My dad used to say, I like you. And I go, Dad, don't you love me? And he go, you can love people without liking them. And it's like, oh, there's where the value maybe is.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting. So how do you but as your clients go through this and they start transforming, sorry, I don't know why my words are all mixed up today. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say sorry. That's one of my challenges. Thank you for dealing with my tongue-tied words.
That's great. I love that.
How do we not have to take that shameful? There's no shame in this. It's just what happens. Right. So, but how, as you work with your clients, they start transforming, does it seem to affect all three areas? Like, they feel safer, they feel more valued and loved? Because I can't imagine them not being kind of all intertwined.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you see that as the transformation happens, obviously it's affecting all three of their core needs. And, even from my own experience, as I've done this work myself, I show up as a completely different person, right? Because I've done that deep inner work. And so then I am more confident. I don't struggle with that comparison as much anymore. And, I know that I am deeply loved by others around me. I'm loved by God. That truth is way deeper inside of me. And I know that I'm safe. And so it's separate, but yet it's intertwined. And it just, as you do that work, it just shows up in your life and the results that you're seeing in your life, for sure.
What I was thinking is, as we shore up our foundation, whether it's a safety foundation or love or value, as we make that stronger, the rest of the building is stronger. I mean, we have a building here in the close to us that they went in and took out all the footings and made it safer and more earthquake proof. And the building structure itself looks the same. The building structure itself, you couldn't tell the difference once they're done, but it's solid. And they took that foundation and they made it stronger, but it still looked the same. And I think sometimes we forget that we do appear the same. We just are stronger. And so I love that.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So did you have another story of transformation or something you could share with us about how you've seen this work on others and not just, well, you can do you also. You don't have to name names.
I will say probably, obviously I'm getting transformation and my clients are getting transformation, but one of the most fascinating stories was actually my own husband. He had been facing a challenge and I offered him, I said, I can take you through this process that I take my clients through if you're willing, because I could tell like he was coming up against a belief and it was keeping him from moving forward. And so, it's a little bit more challenging to coach a family member, but I just kind of, walked him through some stuff. And he did the work that I asked him to do. And he went and did what he needed to do. This block that had been holding him back was completely removed. And he was like, this stuff works. It's just been so cool to kind of have that front seat view of how he's showing up completely different because he's done this work. He hears me talk about it all the time. He's seen it in my own life. And yet, he hadn't really experienced it for himself. And he'll tell other people, he's like, wow, this stuff that my wife is doing, it's so incredibly transformational. And so it's been really fun to get to see that even in my own family, for him to experience that. So, yeah.
I think that those are the most fun when you actually, because I get to see it daily, not just once a week or what, you see it and you feel it. Did it change your whole relationship as he started to go through this? I mean,
for sure.
In a good way, not like it's all different, but it's stronger.
Yes. And, it's one of those things where it would have been easy for me to be like, hey, you need to do this. But I waited until he was ready for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want him to feel like I, as his wife, was forcing him to do this. But I just kind of offered it to him. And when he was ready to take those steps, then I walked him through that. And so it has affected our relationship as well. I feel like we're more on the same page. He understands now more the work that I'm doing, and it gives him more of an inside view and the power of the work that I'm doing. And he's always been very supportive of me and my journey as a coach. But just for him to actually experience that himself has been really profound. So
that's awesome. I think this is really exciting because I kind of want to hear more about just being able to watch that more on a daily progress instead of these, because sometimes they're hard to see in little chunks. It's kind of, as a coach, you work with people once a week, and if they've done the work, there's transformation in that week. But on a daily basis, it may not feel the same. So what I would like is to take a quick break. And then when we come back, have you tell us a little bit more about that daily experience of transformation? Because, do we recognize it? So be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
Welcome back. And so how did this go as you were starting to work with your husband and you started to see the changes? How did that feel? Like, was it more empowering? Did you like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works? Because people can lie, but you're watching it.
Yes. I think it really was very, once again, affirming in that I made the right decision to do what I'm doing, because I know that I'm making a difference in other people's lives, which is why I do what I do. But having that front seat view was really exciting. I agree with you. It is like you see your clients maybe on a weekly or every other week basis, And you can see the progress, yes, but it definitely was a different experience for me to see it on that daily basis. And he really I give my clients homework to do. Like there's things they need to do on their own in order to find that breakthrough that they need. And so I gave him the homework and he was doing the work. I didn't even have to remind him. Like he did it all on his own. And so that was really fun to see. And then just, understanding the brain science, there's kind of a time frame for that old neural pathway to break away. When I talk about breaking off those old beliefs, there's actual physical work that's happening in the brain by doing this process that I give to my clients. And that's that process of breaking off that old neural pathway. Well, and typically it's right about that 21-day mark, give or take, when that process begins to happen, that breaking away of that old neural pathway. And then as the new one begins to form. And it was really fascinating because it was kind of in that time frame where I could see that shift in him, where he began to show up differently, more confident, more courageous. And, he faced this hard thing in his life that he knew he needed to, take a step towards that felt so challenging before that he could not do. And then he went and did it like it was no big deal, all because of the brain work that he had done. And so, yes, having that front seat was it was an incredible experience. It really was. And so it's one of my favorite stories to say because, like I said earlier, sometimes with our family members, it's challenging to kind of navigate because we're so close to them and it's not always ideal, but this one worked out and it was just a fun experience for sure.
I think sometimes when and maybe I a little too assertive with family members is like, don't do that. Stop.
Yes.
Change that pattern. And it's like, then you just feel like I feel like, not you. I feel like I'm starting to micromanage and cross over that line to this unwelcomed piece. But when they start asking questions and they say, now, how do you, and when they start noticing it, that's when all of a sudden I feel like, okay, I can just share now instead of baby pieces. Because it's like, are they willing to listen yet?
Yeah.
When I started my journey, probably 10 or so years ago. I mean, when I really started changing, not just thinking about it, but my husband would go places with me and say things like, I'm here for her. I'm supporting her and not there for real, and when he finally started asking to go to some of these places instead of, I just offered for him to go with me. I didn't tell him he had to, but when he started asking, hey, if there's another one of these, can we sign up? I'm like, oh, okay. So now it's not just because you're like helping make sure I'm being happy. I don't know why he always wanted to go with me. I was happy to have him, but it did eventually make it where it was his choice first, not like, I think you know what I mean. I'm going to quit trying to explain it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because one of my sons was saying something a while back and I said, I could coach you through that, because they know I coach and what I do and all of that. And they're like, no, I don't need that, Mom. I'm like, okay, that's okay too. And so I think it's just having it there as an option for them. They know I'm there to support them. I'm a mom, first of all. And sometimes it's hard to turn off my coach hat, but, I try not to, always bring my coaching to relationships and, be the mom, be the friend, be the wife. But if they're ready for that, then I'm happy to coach them as well. So, yeah.
I'm kind of running out of questions. I'm usually pretty good at thinking about new ones, but so let's go with, I know there's more than just removing, because when we remove, we are empty. So we also need to replace the habits and pick the new ways of thinking or being. So as you move into this replacing, which is, I think, one of the parts of what your homework and stuff does.
Mhm.
How do you ever find people are so focused on getting rid of something that they're actually grasping onto it more? Because I guess in my experience, the more someone hates something, the more they hold on to it. And so it's, how do you do that softer
Mm.
transition of, let's replace it
Mhm.
with something you might like better?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the style of coaching that I've been trained in is that many times my clients come in and they don't even know the belief. Like, I'm helping them uncover that belief that's running, because it's running in their subconscious brain.
Yes.
It's not something that's, cognitively in their prefrontal cortex, their logical brain. They're not aware of what's running in their subconscious memory that's affecting their results. And, like I said, many times those beliefs are stored in our subconscious memory ever since we were a child. And so as I help them discover transformational for them, it's like, oh my goodness. And they can clearly see how that belief has been affecting them, even as an adult. And so then once they identify that belief, then we begin a process of tapping into both the logical part of the brain as well as the emotional part of the brain to refute it. And so that's just this process of, because our brain needs to see the logical evidence that this is not true in their life. It's a really powerful exercise to walk through. And then we begin the process of, writing out what are the truths that replace that lie that we've been believing that's been running through our subconscious. And so I wouldn't say that I really ran into resistance around or hanging on to that old belief, because it's more about uncovering what's there that they're not even really aware of. And so once that process happens, and then, like you said, we replace it, because we don't want to just remove, we want to replace with the truth. We need to fill back up again and not leave that empty. And uh, that's where they do their homework. We actually have them create what's called a truth prime, and they begin to listen to that. They record their truth primes on like a recording app on their phone, and they listen to that auditorially, like every morning when they wake up, and then every night right before they go to bed is the most ideal time for the brain to assimilate that. And it's amazing that you can really see that transformation happen as they listen to that truth prime regularly. That process of really breaking away that old neural pathway and forming the new one is really where the transformational work happens. And so I haven't really ran into resistance of people wanting to hang on to their old beliefs. It's more of just they're so like, oh, this makes so much sense now. And they're so grateful to uncover what's been holding them back. So,
As you were talking through that, one of the thoughts in my head was, a lot of times the people think they know what they want to work on. Like, I'm shy and I don't feel like talking, or I'm an introvert and I need to feel more comfortable in people. But their belief is kind of something different, or I'm not worthy of this, or I'm not, like, maybe they were told to not be heard from their parents. And so they feel like they're not supposed to speak. And so they may put a label on it that the actual underlying belief is a little different. And so I think really tagging in and identifying what it is that really is happening, and then working on that is really critical. So I love
yes.
how you phrased that as, working through it and figuring out what that belief or that broken pattern was,
For
and
sure.
coming up with, how do we really fix it? And yeah, I think it's really awesome. So,
And it's all based on brain science, the scientific, proof of how the brain, wires those pathways. And so that's what I love about this process, because it taps into that. And so that's why it's so effective as well. And also our brain our brain's main role is to keep us safe and familiar. And so many times that resistance that comes up for us, we think, oh, it's because we're not good enough or we can't do this. And then those beliefs come up. But also just recognizing that oftentimes that resistance that we're facing, like let's say we want to grow our business and we know that we need to show up on social media, but that feels uncomfortable for us. Well, it's our brain saying, oh, this is not safe. We've not done this before. It doesn't feel familiar, right? But just simply understanding that that's our brain's role, but that doesn't mean that needs to stop us, and we can, face that resistance, uncover the beliefs that are holding us back and move forward. And so that's a really cool process as well.
Yeah, I still hate showing up on social media. Just like it has, you kind of get that feeling that it's so negative everywhere and people aren't there to try and find friends. I think a lot of people are there to find fault. And so you show up and you just have to be willing to take whatever comes. Thank goodness it's not as bad as what I thought.
Yeah.
I'd have gone, never mind, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of and I'm not sure if this is the right words, but self-love or self-acceptance to allow and to open yourself up to that vulnerability that you have to really show up on social media. And I look at the influencers and I go, you guys rock. I cannot believe, the few people that I have in my social media network, I can get exhausted from it. Can you, maybe you have this, but I can't imagine 500,000 followers. And I would have to tap out. It's like, I can't handle all this, but hopefully it's not as bad as what I think.
Yeah. Well, and everybody, we all have different gifts and personalities and all of that. I'm an introvert by nature. So that also plays into making it harder for me to show up. But the really fascinating thing is because there was a point in my life too, where I was like, can't show up on social media. That feels way too challenging. But as I've been doing this, breaking off the old belief patterns and just facing the resistance and not pulling away, it's much easier for me to show up on social media. Now, I don't have a large following, and that's okay. It's a good place for me to start. And I'm just willing to learn and grow, and put myself out there. But, if I wouldn't have done that deep inner work, I wouldn't be able to show up. But it's really about becoming secure in my identity and knowing who I am. And if I get negative feedback, it's okay. That doesn't change anything about me. And so just being really secure in that, I think, is very important. But yeah, like for you, that showing up on social media feels overwhelming. And, your brain is like throwing up that resistance because you've learned before maybe. And so then it feels like, oh my goodness, what in the world? But facing that and leaning into that is so important. And then discovering, what are the thoughts that I'm thinking as I face this resistance? Because those areas of resistance are essentially like saying, pay attention. This is where you need to pay attention, because there might be some thoughts there that, are holding you back and keeping you from showing up. So,
I hate to be seen. So that's why I have a podcast.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So I guess we all have, that's generalizing again. I have my insecurities I fight with every day, but I still know that changing the way we think and changing the way we talk to ourselves can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And I know that I show up more comfortably. I don't know if it's better or not, but I'm more comfortable in showing up. And I don't care if it's better or not. It's me.
Yes.
If you don't like who I am, I'm not changing for you. And that may sound stubborn. And I've been told many times I'm stubborn, even from a little tiny kid, but it's not worth my effort to try and get everybody to like me. And I think, and I've heard this quote before, and it was on one of my other interviews. So if you've watched, listened to all the podcasts, you've already heard this, but, Jacqueline said, I could be the juiciest, sweetest peach in the world, and there's still going to be people that don't like peaches. And so you just have to be more confident in who you are and be okay with the people that don't like peaches. I have a son-in-law that doesn't like peaches, and peaches are my favorite. It's like, okay, I won't make peach pie. But yeah, it's really figuring out how we can be okay with who we are.
Well, and like you said, you've been called stubborn even when you were young. Well, now as an adult, you get to choose how you look at that stubbornness. Is that a good thing, or is that a negative thing for you? It's in how you look at it, because stubborn can be good.
Oh, it has saved my life more than once.
For sure. Absolutely. But I'm sure as a young child, it was looked at as negative.
Oh, yeah.
That you were stubborn. And so you've had to shift how you look at the stubbornness. But it's a really good example.
But as a parent, that's a really hard thing to deal with in a child, when you cannot persuade them or make them do anything. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and I know we're out of time, but this one still makes me giggle at how stubborn I was, or am, because it hasn't changed. But I did not want to do the dishes, and I wasn't going to. And my mother said, well, then you just stay in this room until you do the dishes. Guess who slept in the kitchen? And guess what I said the next morning when she told me I had to go to school? No, Mom, the dishes aren't done. I get to stay here. Okay. Is that stubborn? Yeah. Who else is going to sleep on a hard kitchen floor just to prove a point? I don't know, just me. But yeah, so that's the extent of, that's almost bullheaded when you take the stubbornness to an extreme. I put my first divorce. I've always said, that's when I learned to put myself first. I was no longer, but you know what? It didn't happen then. It happened long before that. I always made my choices and nobody was pushing me around. But at the same time, unkind. I don't know if that makes sense, because sometimes when you hear about someone being stubborn, it's associated with rude, condescending. I'm never going to do this. And I'm not that way anymore. Just when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you can see as an adult where the stubbornness that you were labeled with actually was a beautiful gift in your life. And you're probably where you are today because you were stubborn. Am I right?
Absolutely. You have the push through power. You have the ability to stay on track, even if thousands of people are telling you it's not going to work. And so, stubborn or not, I feel like I have a dream life. And so, married to that perfect person. Yeah, they have flaws, but perfectly my partner. Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody else may not take it that way, but they're perfect for me. And so I have a perfect life for me. That doesn't mean everybody wants it. So.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I love that you shared that, because it's really in how we view sometimes it's how we've been labeled, right? For me, it was, my lack of education. And so, I didn't go through high school. I didn't go to college. And so I thought I was not smart. And but not having that education actually served me well because it made me very gritty and determined to succeed at life. And so I could look at that as a negative or positive. And so, yeah, it's such a great example of how we view things and how we think about things makes such a difference in how we show up.
That your I wasn't educated reminds me of the Henry Ford when they were going and hey, you don't know these things. You don't know. And he's like, I don't need to. I can push this button and get any answer I want. And with Google today, we don't even need that friggin' button. We just have to type it in. And so it's like, no, education doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. Yep. You have an ability to learn, to thrive, to grow, and stay in the game. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you only went to or homeschooled or went to the most prestigious college in the world. It doesn't matter. You still is based on your intelligence. And I love that because it is very, we second guess ourselves. That's this whole thing about this brain changing is why do I second guess? And why do I feel like I have to compare all the other person's good things to my things and forget the good things I have? Because there's value. And if we all drove the exact same car, we would be lost in the parking lot.
Right.
We would be
and there'd be no fun in the world.
Yeah. That pretty, I'm trying to think of what cool car. There's some cars out there that are so cool colored and I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. That people are the same. Stand out. Be you.
Yes. For sure.
And I think all these broken patterns tie right back to, I need to feel whole. And as long as I'm comparing and judging based on somebody else's, my minuscule amount of exposure to that person. So I know me for however many seconds there are in every year for as many years old as I am. And you know me for however many seconds are in the 2 or 3 hours or 2 or 3 years. There's a whole bunch that we don't see. We compare ourselves of our entirety to the shining moments of somebody else. And they're not always shining. And until you can really understand that you have shining things and you are of value just the way you are, you're stuck. And so I love what you have brought to the table. And the thing that I love most about these interviews is how much they inspire me to keep going. It's just like, woohoo. And, some people go, well, if you're a coach, why are you interviewing coaches? That's your competition. Well, we need coaches everywhere. There is no way one of us could service everybody. And there is no way one of us is going to relate to everybody because we have those different shining moments that are going to show up, and some are going to be intimidated and some are going to be attracted. And so you just know it doesn't matter. Because the people that are meant for each and every coach is going to be attracted to them for the reason and for the way they show up. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're way out of time. And I love it. As much as I want to stay to my 30 minutes for my listener who commutes and takes advantage, when I go over, I feel a little selfish, like it was all for me. I had so much fun. I couldn't just shut it down.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, I really, truly appreciate our time together. And and for rescheduling when my internet was down, and you didn't lose your place in line. You're still right there.
Oh, no worries. And thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
So anyway, listener, Iva and I are not medical or mental professionals. We are here for entertainment, sharing with things that make us or bring us joy to help bring you joy. And have an amazing day, and stay tuned for the next episode. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.